In this video, I'm going to be creating these sparklers in Houdini from this reference. I will put this video in the playlist as well. I feel like there are two layers of sparks. The first layer are sparks coming off the stick, and the second layer are the sparks appearing when these disappear. I'm going to start with only the sparks coming off the stick and then do the second layer. On object level, I'm going to put down a geometry object. Dive inside and put down a sphere. And then I also want to put down a tummy as my size reference. So I want to decrease the size of the sphere a lot, since it's just going to be the source of the particles. So I'm going to try something very low. How's this? We move it up. Imagine Tommy is holding it in his hands. So it's just really small. That's good. Then I want to scatter some points on the sphere. So I'm going to put down a scatter node. And I'm going to uncheck force total count and use the density scale instead. Increase the number. Let's try this. How many points we have? None. Let's increase it more. 17. Let's do maybe 4 times that. So we have 50 points. Maybe double it. 95, yeah, that's good. And then I want to untoggle relax iteration. And then to get a different set of points every frame, I want to put the frame number into global seed. So I'm going to write $frame. And now on every frame, we get a different distribution. Now I'm going to put down a pop network and connect the scatter to the first input. Dive inside. And on the pop source on the right, I want to change the emission type to all points. And then the geometry source is the first context geometry, which is here, so that's all good. Now when I play the simulation, nothing much happens, but I want to push the points outwards. This node will have the particles inherit the initial velocity from before the simulation. So I'm just going to give the points a velocity attribute up here. So I'm going to put down an attribute adjust vector. And by default it's set to v, which is velocity, so that's good. Let's visualize it. And then I'm going to change the adjust width to noise. And remember, the sphere is very, very small, 0.002. So I want to make the element size really, really small too. So let's try 0.002. And I want 0 center to get both positive and negative values. We can also animate it. Let's see how this looks. And then if you take this number down, it moves faster. And you should toggle real time down here to see the actual playback, otherwise it's gonna move too fast. Let's try something like this. Yeah. And then I'm just gonna hide the velocities again and see how the simulation looks now. So the points are going all over the place. So back inside of the pop network, I want to limit their lifespan. So in birth, I'm going to take their life expectancy down to maybe 0.1 second. And we should also add some gravity. So I'm just going to put down a gravity force node down here. And you can see the particles also fall down. So they get pushed out and then eventually gravity takes over and pulls them to the ground. Now I'm going to clean up the attributes after the simulation. So I'm going to put down an attribute delete. And I'm going to delete all of the attributes except I want to keep P and I want to keep ID. But I'm not going to take velocity because instead of struggling to render good enough motion blur, I'm going to create lines from the points of the particle simulations. So down here I'm going to put down a trail node And this node will create a trail from 2 points in time, because the trail length is 2, and the distance between the points in time are going to be 1 full frame. To connect these points together, I'm going to use an add node. And inside of here, I'm going to go into polygons and add by group. This is going to connect all of the points together based on the point number. But if you change it to add by attribute, and then we can use the ID attribute, it's only going to connect points together that have the same ID value. We can also take a look at the ID in color. So I'm going to put down a color node, connect it, and in here I'm going to say random from attribute, and I'm going to use the ID. And now you can see that each ID value has its own color. So if we connect it back to here, you can see just going to make the points a little bit bigger, like this. So we got one of each points, and then we got a trail of 2 points, and then we connect them together. But if you look at the reference, the sparks don't create these perfectly straight lines. They are more like a little bit curved. So I would like to get that as well. So first of all, I'm going to go back to the simulation, and I'm going to add some substeps to the simulation. So if you take a look at the global animation options and untoggle integer frame values and move ahead, you can see points are only been created on the full frames. But if we add some substeps, I'm going to say 5 substeps. And now if we play, points are being added 5 times between each full frames. So you can see there's more constant emission of points. We also have a lot more points because we are adding them more frequently. So I'm just going to go up to the scatter node, and then I'm going to take this down from 6 zeros to 5 zeros. Let's play it again, and we got fewer particles. Now let's go back to the trail node. This one, and right now we just have the same. We have the trail length of 2 with 1 full frame between them. So we can take the trail length to, let's make it 10 points, so 10 points in time. And then I'm going to decrease the trail increment from 1 frame to 0.1 frame. So now the trail is made out of 10 points, each separated by 0.1 frame. So the full trail is around 1 frame. And now we got some curvature on the sparks. So now that I can better see what I'm doing, I'm going to work a little bit on the simulations. We're going to go in here, and in the gravity node, I'm just going to multiply this by 0.5. Let's see how this looks. So I'm going to go upstairs and play, and I'm just going to pin the view. Go back inside, and in here let's try 0.25, something like this. And if you compare this to the reference, you can see how most of the sparks travel a similar distance, but there are few sparks once in a while that go further out. So on the node where I set the initial velocities, I can enable post-process. And what I want to do is I want to scale the velocity values based on another attribute. So you can use the blend option and use blend by attribute. And then I'm going to create that attribute. So I'm going to go above this node. And after the scatter, I'm going to put down another attribute adjust node. But in this case, it's going to be an attribute adjust float. Connect it. I'm gonna change this name to mask, but you can call it anything. And you can see it here in the geometry spreadsheet. Then I'm gonna set the pattern type to random. So you can see it now has values between 0 and 1. And I'm gonna adjust this ramp. I'm gonna use a B-spline and then do something like this. This way, most of the particles will be multiplied by the minimum value, so I'm just going to keep it the same as 1. And then just a few points will be multiplied by the maximum value. So let's just put it to 1.5. And now I can select the mask attribute. And if we go up here and visualize velocities, you can see the difference. I'm going to go back to the mask attribute and I'm going to take my minimum value down, so 0.5 maybe. Something like this. And if we play, yeah. Let's see how this looks after the simulation. So I'm going to turn off the velocities again, move the blue flag, reset the simulation. And let's compare it to a reference. Yeah, I kinda like it. Maybe I just wanna adjust my mask a little bit. So I want a bit more of the sparks to go further out. So I'm just gonna move this one a little bit further out. I also feel like every once in a while there's a spark that lives longer, like some of these out here. So I'm gonna create a live attribute. Instead of using this life expectancy and maybe some variance, I want to create an attribute with a similar ramp. So before the simulation here, I'm going to put down another attribute, adjust float. And this is going to be called live. You can see it here in the geometry spreadsheet. I'm going to set this pattern type to random. And down here, I'm going to choose a B-spline. And again, I want most of them to be close to the minimum value, and then just a few of them be close to the maximum value. So minimum value could be something like 0.02, something really small. We were using, wow, they were actually living a little bit longer, 0.1, but let's see how this looks. And the maximum value could be something like 0.1. Let's try this. Comparing to the reference, I want to increase the maximum value. Let's see how this looks. Maybe somewhere in the middle, 0.15. And then later we'll create the second layer of particles. But for this stage, I think we are almost good. But the last thing I want to add to the simulation is a little bit of a pop force to get a little bit of wind going. So we get this variation in the direction of the sparks. So inside of the pop simulation, I'm just going to put down a pop force and connect it up here. So first the points are brought into the simulation and then they're moved according to this force. Right now it's not doing anything, but let's give it a little bit of wind instead. So I'm going to set the force to 0, 0, maybe 10. Let's see how this looks. Let's try 5. Something, maybe 3. And then I want to add some noise also. So I'm just going to take the amplitude to 1 first. Let's just take it to something high that we can see. The swirl size is 1 meter, which is good. I'm going to just take the roughness down to 0. Maybe you can decrease the length of the pulse to make it go faster. Something like this. And then increase the roughness again. Something like this. And then I'm just going to take the amplitude down. I just want a little bit of this. Let's check out our reference again. And just to see it properly, I'm going to make a flipbook. So I'm going to right click on the flip icon. And in size, I'm going to untoggle these and then just start. Let's play it. And I'm going to compare it to my reference. Yeah. Maybe I should decrease the gravity a bit more. Or even remove it. It's not really acting on them a lot. I'm gonna go back here, go to the gravity. Let's just add a tiny bit of gravity. Yeah, let's make a render test. So I'm gonna go upstairs. I'm going to put down a null. I'm just gonna call it render sparkler. Then I'm gonna go upstairs and I wanna unpin the view. And I'm gonna put down a render object. So I'm gonna put down another geometry node. I'm gonna call it render sparkler, dive inside. I'm gonna put down an object merge. And I wanna pick up my null, so I'm gonna go out of this node, up one level into Geo1, and then my null is called render sparkler. So we have them here. And now I'm gonna put down a camera. New cam, so this is my camera. And then I'm gonna save the scene and go into Solaris. So object, stage. In here I'm gonna bring in the sparkler in the camera, so I'm gonna put down a scene import node. And I'm gonna force the objects, the camera and the render sparkler, accept. And you can see your lines are very thick. I'm gonna set the camera view, hide the grid, change the background to dark. And we can change to the render view, karma. I'm just gonna give this a shader real quick, so I'm gonna put down a material library. And I'm also gonna use this node to assign the shader to the sparkler, so I'm gonna choose my sparkler here. Dive inside, I'm gonna open up the material palette. And I'm just gonna put down one principal shader. In here, I'm gonna change the color to white. And inside of emission, I'm gonna change the emission color to white as well. And now I wanna pin the view inside of stage and go back to the system to make my curves thinner. So object, Geo1. And down here I wanna create a new attribute called width, and it's gonna be a float attribute. So I'm gonna put down an attribute adjust float. And I'm gonna call it width and set it to something small like 0.001. Probably a bit smaller, to something like this. Now let's compare this to our sparks. So if you look at these initial sparks, they usually start off thin and then become thicker. Here. So I want a similar effect. So I'm just gonna unpin the view. And what I want is an attribute that goes from 0 to 1 along the curves. And to create that attribute, I can actually use the resample node. And in here, I'm gonna make sure to untoggle both maximum segment length and the maximum segments, because I don't want to resample anything. The only thing I want is this curveu attribute. This curveu attribute goes from 0 to 1 along the curves. Let's take a look at it in color. So I'm gonna say ramp from attribute, and I'm gonna choose curveu. And you can see it's 1 in the beginning and then gradually becomes 0 where the curves are black. So now that I have this attribute, I can use it to remap the width. So I'm just gonna plug the resample node into the width node. And in here, I'm gonna choose remap attribute. And the attribute I want to remap is curveu. And now to see how it looks, I am gonna go back into Solaris. And we got some really big curveu, so I'm just going to pin the view here, go back to my system, and I'm going to change the minimum maximum values. So let's just say the maximum should be 0.002, and then we can put the minimum to 0.001. But we want the opposite, so we can actually just turn this ramp around. And I think I want to take both values down, so let's say 0.0001, and let's take this to 0.001. Maybe 0.5. Let's compare this to a reference. Yeah, I think I'm happy with this for now. Maybe I want to work on the ramp a little bit, so I'm going to change it to B-spline. Maybe try something like this, see what looks nice. I'm going to go back into Solaris. And I'm just going to make this emission color a little bit yellowish, or like yellow reddish. And then I'm going to put down a karma setup. Okay, connected. I want to choose my camera. I'm going to increase the resolution. I'm going to remove any depth of field. And then for the output file, I'm just going to copy the name of the file and the name of the node and create a folder with the same name. Then I want to rename this node since the sequence will take its name, so I'm going to call it Sparkler. And I want to render the full frame range, and let's render it out to disk. I have rendered out 100 frames, so I'm going to take a look at them in mplay. And let's compare them to the reference. In the next video, I will go over how to get the secondary sparks coming off the initial sparks using a point replicate node. So hopefully see you there, and please, if you like this video, hit like and subscribe.